Hi guys, here's another update to the Trex 550 DFC. I just installed some fuel tubing, some orange fuel tubing. I thought that makes the helicopter look a little better. It looks nice. This was kind of an afterthought. I had everything adjusted just perfectly, and I decided, well, I want that look to it. Just adds a little bit more to it. I didn't want to uninstall all these linkages and screw them back in. So what I did is I took some oil, some tri-flow oil, and I oiled this fuel tubing, the inside of it, and the plastic piece up here. And then I pushed it through. It was a little tight to get through even with the oil on it, but it worked. So I was excited about that. It makes it look nice. You can see that when the canopy comes over it, it covers all that up. So it's only when the canopy's off. It just gives it a little bit more class. I also zip tied. I had orange ones on, zip ties, but I decided that didn't look very good. It just looked like it was too much orange on it, so I took that off. And it makes it more of a cleaner look. Otherwise, I'd have the orange here, orange down here. It just didn't look right. So I eliminated the orange and I put the black zip ties on. It looks nice. I also got my ESC done. I'll flip it over for you guys. There, you guys can kind of see that's the inside. I just wired it, and it looks good right inside there. The wires inside there were a little hard to maneuver around. It's stiff inside there, so you gotta kind of finesse it a little bit, but don't like break the wires or anything. But there's enough room in there to get it. I just put the fuel tubing over the top and I wired it like you can see there, just to give it a little bit more extra support if it did vibrate off. I also did put underneath this mount right here, I did put some foam, just enough so it didn't vibrate, just a little bit. It was tight pushing it on. You had to really kind of apply force to get it on, but once it latched on, it's good. And now there's really no vibrations in there whatsoever. That was nice. I also adjusted my motor so the mesh is right. Up on top, if it's going up and down, there's a pinion that goes up and down right in through here. You can see it right there. Yeah, on the top side, they're supposed to be 1 millimeter from the top of this gear to the top of the pinion. And I was trying to decide what 1 millimeter was, so I took out my gauge, my caliper gauge, and I taped, or I folded 4 pieces of paper, folded those up of printer paper, and that was exactly 1 millimeter on that. And then you need to get the pinion from how far it is away from this main gear, and that's 0.1 millimeters, and that's just one sheet of printer paper. So what you want to do is you want to stick it through the gears and have it wrinkle up, and then screw down your screws with Loctite. And that should be the proper. And you can kind of see, let's see if I can get inside. Let's see if I can get inside here. Let's see, twist it just a little bit. And you can't really see it. Maybe you can. But there's just a little bit of movement. And that's exactly what you want. Some sides are not as much movement. And I don't think it's made exactly perfect, but just get it roughly really close to the same. Some of them aren't exactly. You might want to check them in different spots to make sure that it works exactly right. And just a feeler gauge with that paper inside there, that's going to help out a lot too on that. So that's kind of what you want to do on that. It's a little time consuming, but it works out okay. And then what else you want to do too is you see those 2 screws right there and right there. You also, sometimes with this wire, there's a wire that the motor sticks out of, it kind of twists a little bit. So you kind of want to make sure that your screws, one screw is not higher than the other. You want to make sure that they're both lined up too. That's just going to make it more precise and more and just better. So that's that part. We'll go on to the next segment. Okay, also when you're talking about the mesh too, moving this gear back and forth, I started mine up just to see how it worked, and you definitely want to take your main blades off. That's a must, and you definitely want to take your tail blades off too, because once it starts up, winds up, it could come back and bite you really quick. These could come off and hit you in the arm or somewhere else. So definitely take both blades off. It's not worth messing around on that. And then also what I did is on all these wires, you can see the plastic shrink. What I did is there used to be white lettering on there, and I just didn't like the look of it, so I tried turning them upside down, but you could still see them on underneath once you're looking at it. So what I did is I just took a black permanent marker and I blacked it out. But then there's still a black permanent marker look, and it looks really bad. So then what I did is I took my finger and I wiped off the excess when it was still wet, and now you can't even see any of them. They look really, really good that way. So that's another thing that I did was nice. Another thing too is just for perfection and trying to get everything nice and straight and lined up. You noticed how my canopy mounts, they're nice and straight. That both of them are straight. So one's not at a 45-degree angle. They're both lined up too. That's just something that you can take some time, and it just makes it look better. Some people probably wouldn't even notice, but the people that are looking at the helicopters, they would notice that. They will also notice these orange things that you took a little bit more time to do that. It just adds a little bit more to that. I also did change my landing skid around, so now it's going forward towards the nose. Looks good. These were pretty tight to put on. These caps down here on both sides, they were a little loose when you just stuck them in, so I used a little bit of CA, just gap filler CA, and I filled that in as well. I also installed my tail boom struts. That's pretty self-explanatory. But then what I also did too is here, I was telling you guys in the last segment that I was going to put some Scotch tape on. So I can't remember exactly how thick they wanted it, but I think it was like 4 mil. I can't even remember. I'm not going to even quote it. So what I did is I put Scotch tape. I wrapped it a whole bunch of times around here. Try to get it nice and smooth without any wrinkles on it. Then I made the mistake of putting this on without using a permanent marker, because it's white, right? It's clear and you can see it, and it doesn't look as good. So what I did is I took a permanent marker. Let's see. Yeah, I took a permanent marker and I blacked it out just enough. It's an off color a little bit, but it sure looks a lot better than just having clear tape on it. You can definitely see that more. So that's one thing too that I did on it. Then the next thing I did is moving back to the tail. Now the tail it's pretty complicated. Again, one thing that some people can have and they overlook is the tail wag. You get some tail wag in here. So what you want to do is make sure that this is super, super smooth. And if there's any binding issues in here, you want to make sure that you get those resolved. Now, I thought mine was was nice at first, but then when my Loctite hardened, was just a little rough. So I had to take. So the main thing is, most of the time, if this is a culprit right here, this black piece, these two screws right here are. So what you want to do is take those out, and one screw wasn't had some Loctite in the bushing area, and when I flipped it over, put the head towards the ground, it wouldn't even fall out. So it was a little stuck in. There's a little bit of Loctite in there. I had to loosen it up and re-Loctite it. But yeah, it should be super smooth, silky. Then you should be good to go. But when you're spooling it up, make sure that you take your blades off the tail. And I also wanted to talk about when you're binding your 7200BX. If you bind it first without this satellite receiver, it's not going to be. You're not going to have this satellite receiver working if you didn't bind it with the satellite receiver. So make sure, if you do have it bound without the receiver, the satellite receiver, make sure you rebind it again with your satellite receiver. Otherwise, it's not going to recognize it. So you'll be flying around with the satellite receiver working, and it won't be. So that's one thing that you should be looking out for as well. The other thing, when you're just setting up this ESC too, is when I started it up, I tried using throttle and nothing happened. So I remembered I had to go into my DX8, and I set my sub trim down to 35. And if it's too high of a sub trim, it's not going to activate the ESC. So I put it a low of 35, and that seemed to be working fine. You can do it different ways too. You can use your throttle. Let's see, your throttle. Yes, you can use your throttle travel, and you can set this up. This would be for the low end. So if your throttle's down at the low end, it's going to show low, and if your throttle's up on the high end, it's going to show high. So you can also, if you didn't want to go into your sub trim, you can go into here and bring it up to about 15, and then that should activate it too. But I didn't do that. I went down to, let's see, I went over to the sub trims, and I just did it there. It's the same kind of concept, and I lowered to 35, and that seemed to work just fine as well. So that's one thing that you have to do. Another thing I was just going to bring to your attention too is your canopy. I like the look of it. And one thing, the only thing that I really noticed that was hard, not really hard, but this was kind of hard to stick in. Just have to kind of use a little bit of force and screw it in. You don't want to screw it down too tight. The other thing is, when I was doing the canopy mounts, I'm going to move this out of the way. That doesn't look very good. When I was using the canopy mounts, you want to make sure that black goes on the outside, and then obviously you stick the mount through there. But one thing that you don't want to use is too much CA on here. And if it is a little bit too much CA and it kind of beads up around it, just let it bead up and let it dry, because you don't want to beat it up and then try to wipe it off. It's going to smear and it's going to wreck your canopy. So that's just another little tidbit of information that I thought that you would like to see. And so overall, I have a little bit more to go on the helicopter. I have to set up still my electronic adjustments. It's getting closer. So that's what I had for today. So thanks for watching, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.